am going to be talking about the fact that the Houston Astros went down to the Texas Rangers. Now, this was a wild series, obviously, where the road team won all 7 games. It's what I talked about entering the postseason. Baseball, out of the 4 major professional sports, NHL, NBA, NFL, is the most unpredictable. We knew that going into these LCS series, all 4 teams have won 90 games or less. We know that obviously the Orioles went down and the Braves went down, 2 of the favorites in their respective conferences. With that being said, we know what Major League Baseball is about. We know it's about great pitching, not only from your starters, but from the bullpen. We know it's about timely hitting, home runs, stealing bases, base hits, doing the little things that a lot of teams in baseball don't do anymore. And of course, playing good, clean defense, not committing errors. The team that does those 3 things the best usually move on and have a great chance to win the World Series. And how about this story? The number 5 seed, Texas Rangers, they took out the Tampa Bay Rays in the wild card round. Then they ended up taking out the Baltimore Orioles in round number 2 in a clean sweep, and then to go 7 games with the Houston Astros, winning 4 games in Houston. When Texas thought they should have had the division potentially won, they lost it on the last day of the season to the Houston Astros. And just when Jose Altuve hit that 3-run bomb in Game 5 to put Houston up 3-2, we all thought Texas would fold. We thought Houston would win in 6, go on to the World Series. Texas has that mental resolve, and Bruce Bochy, one of the game's all-time best managers, managed those Giants teams in 2010. 2012, 2014, that won the World Series, now will have an opportunity to play either in Arizona squad, which obviously a lot of different players, but he's used to that ballpark because of the years he coached in San Francisco, or a Philadelphia Phillies team that last week I called the team of destiny. They were on fire, taking out their division rivals in the Marlins in the wild card round, then the Braves in the divisional round. Then they beat up on Arizona. They were up 2-0 going to Arizona. It looked like it was going to be a 4 or 5 game gentleman's sweep, and the Phillies were going to be on their way to the World Series. They could not take care of business in Arizona, losing 2 out of 3 games. An opportunity last night to go in Game 6, and their offense obviously just completely quieted down. Now, it has been uncharacteristically seasonably warm this October around the Midwest and the East. We talk about it a lot of times in baseball, how, in June, July, especially August, early September, that ball is flying out of the ballpark because the weather has warmed up. Where in October, we are back to early April baseball. Sometimes that benefits teams. Sometimes that gives teams disadvantages. This year, that has not been the case. And Arizona, who just has a bunch of good players, they don't really have a ton of star power. Nobody really watches the Arizona Diamondbacks. They were pretty good this year. They weren't even close to the Dodgers in the regular season, and yet they sweep them in the divisional round. And now they have a chance to win 2 straight games in Philadelphia tonight, which we called not only last week one of the best home field advantages, not only in baseball, but in all of sports. I mean, we know that the Eagles have a great home crowd in the NFL. That Phillies crowd looks like an Eagles, NFL type atmosphere at a baseball stadium. The interesting thing is going to be here, if it is Texas against Arizona, both teams play in domes. There's going to be no weather affecting the World Series, which just seems kind of weird at this point, at this time of the year in baseball. I do think this would be a massive choke job by Rob Thompson and crew. Philadelphia up 2-0 on Arizona. All the momentum going well. They clearly have the better team when they play their cards right, when they are able to hit. The fact that this got to a Game 7 shocks me. So I do think Philadelphia, they need to bounce back. They will need to get the lead. I think they do so. I think they win tonight, somewhere around a 4-2 score. Texas, I called Philadelphia the team of destiny last week. They seemed like they were destined to go on and win the World Series this year. Now I almost want to flip it. It almost feels like Texas is that team. I did not think after Houston tied it back up 2-2 and then won game 5 in Texas, took all 3 games in that new ballpark the Rangers just opened a few years ago, which they never got a chance to play playoff baseball in, but obviously it was the host of the World Series during the COVID year. I didn't think Texas could respond. I didn't think they could go into Minute Maid Park. Now, Houston had struggled in Minute Maid Park all year long, but with the veterans on that team as opposed to the youngsters in Texas, I really thought that Houston would go in there, win game 6. If not, they bounce back, they win game 7. They'd go on to the World Series. You guys know I was rooting for a Astros Phillies World Series because we haven't seen a World Series rematch since 1978, 1979. I thought that those would be the best 2 brands in baseball, the best 2 teams with stars represented in the World Series. But we all know Texas's infield is littered with all-stars. We know they have the talent. We saw what Max Scherzer did, last night in game 7 against those Houston hitters. So I'm very intrigued. If it's Texas, Arizona, I will take Texas to win the World Series. I think it's a 5-6 game series. If it's Texas, Philadelphia, I could see this very well going 6 or 7 games. I think Philadelphia will have the ability to put away Texas in Arlington. Texas has not been a great home team this postseason. The one thing I will say about both, the Rangers and the Phillies, both of these teams love to get the lead early, and that's when their pitching is at their best. They're not as good when they play from behind. And we've seen, there's been a lot of talk in baseball, but you don't need a ton of power in the postseason. As I've talked about, you need more contact hitting. There has been not a ton of low-scoring games this postseason. There have been a lot of bombs hit out of the park by all 3 teams that are still involved in the postseason. Both these teams have lethal striking. Though can Philly and Texas feel like they can strike a little bit more often to me than Arizona. So I'm going to go ahead and say I think it's Rangers, Phillies in the World Series. I think Phillies will win in 6 games. We'll kind of take a look. Obviously, Friday is game 1 of the World Series. I'll touch on it maybe a little bit on Thursday, but we will be able to examine, essentially games 1 through 3 because it will go Friday, Saturday, Monday. By the time we come back here next Tuesday on the Brands World Podcast, we're essentially at the end of the baseball season. Right now, again, I have Philly in 7 over Texas in the World Series. If Arizona does pull it out tonight, then I would pick Texas in 5 over Arizona. Like that clip from the Brands World Podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brands World Podcast right here on YouTube.